I'm going to switch to Flux now. So I'm going to go back to this in class 2 that I saved. I think I should be able to drag. I could drag these. Okay, there we go. I don't know, work the other way around. So I'm going to go to in class 2, which was when I saved the Flux workflow. And we looked at sort of image to image in STXL and various ways to control it with Kenny, depth, image prompt, and sort of diffusing in the original image instead of the empty latent image. And coming to Flux, we can't use the same control net components, but we have sort of similar workflows. One thing that I really need to say is there are workflows that sort of have, let's say, labeled as control net in Flux, and there are multiple different ways to get this to work. The idea of image to image workflows in Flux. Some of them work better than others, and I think when you load Flux and image to image workflows on various websites, often they, at least when I went to test them, did not have very good workflows. And as a result, there wasn't a lot of coherence between the original input image and the output image in a way that STXL can achieve. But this workflow I'm going to show works quite well, but there are lots of ways that you could do image to image in Flux. And some of them are more file efficient than the others. This one is maybe not as file efficient, but nevertheless, if we select, let's say, a majority of items from our Flux workflow and move them down, oops, sorry. So I'm similarly just going to create a bit of a gap here. And I'm going to load in an image for the image to image workflow. And first thing I'm going to do is just do the image resize as that's a general safeguard. That's not the right one. Image resize. Yeah, image resize comfy UI, where it says in the preview, larger side, smaller side. Okay, this one. So we can make this larger side 1024. Reduce only. Okay, that's all fine. That's going to be my inputs. So let's make this yellow. And then with this image, I can do canny or depth, same as I did before. So canny and or depth. There's one node I have, I just forget what it's there's one node that like has lots of like canny depth and lots of other options just as a drop down. I'll look that up afterwards. Okay, so we can do canny or depth, and let's just do a preview. We could do the save similar as previous if we wanted, but I just preview it. And let's turn that off. Mute. Control M just to mute that off. Okay, so then this here as we want to basically use a instruct pix to pix conditioning. And we're going to basically use this for our pixels. Put in our VAE in here. Let's do a reroute. So bypass. I'm sure why I had that bypass, but anyway. Okay. So, and then put the positive and negative. And one thing I mentioned before is to use flux guidance. Make this green. This probably should have been in the original flux workflow. Okay, and now it's getting a bit messy because I just need to replace these wires here. And I'm going to use this as light options here, but anyway. So that is the linked image. Okay, so I also want to change the model. So currently this is dev FP8. And I'm going to basically, if I use depth or canny, let's say, I'm going to use the canny. And this is a sort of fine-tuned version of Flux for canny. So it's if you were to downloading it, it's another sort of like 16 gigabytes for the canny model, another 16 for the depth model. But we can just use we can just use Flux for the model here. And I think that's all the changes we need to test out this. I haven't changed my prompt. I don't even know what it says. I was going to use the conditional prompt. Let's switch that to that. So I'm just going to simplify the prompt by using just a simple prompt. And when this model loads in, then I can change things around. So Flux models just take a little bit longer to load. It's still loading with this green ring around it. So you can see this canny map is not actually picking up that many edges from the building. It almost leaves it as picks up the background pretty well. Definitely make sure CFG is 1 for a Flux workflow. We kind of did it earlier. This is the file I edited. Okay, so the models are loaded now. You can see it's kind of moving along, coming through here. because we took this image and we did one of those combinatorial prompts. He said we want a dark rubber parametric 5-floor townhouse by David J. At dusk with walnut trees outside. So let's see the workflow came out. If I want to see if I can get my swimming pool that I wanted earlier. Change this to the swimming pool. And the birds kids thing. The beach. So we can see the county map. Let's just see what it generates first with this. And given, we're saving an image here, and if we had it set up an image here, an image there, like you probably do need to keep your output folder tidy. Otherwise it might get very heavy, especially if you're like generating lots and lots of images. Oh wow, that didn't work at all. I don't know what that is. Let's just turn this off for a second by muting that and play around with this image for a second. Get this better. Okay, so there's instantly better edges that more accurately describe. Okay, so now let's turn this back on. Oops. Okay, let's turn the flux guidance to like 15. Might just see if maybe I was meant to use the Sladen image. Okay, that's closer to what I wanted. Nicer if this was water and it was like a sea. All right, let's put a swimming pool. I shouldn't put kids actually. A swimming pool with people playing by the beach. I had to see. Anyway, that worked much better anyway than the previous one. Sometimes people are still kind of deformed, but Flux is going to be better at generating people than SDXL. And they differ a lot in generating people zoomed in portrait-wise, which they tend to be very good at, and people maybe in architectural sense of sort of walking around a building that it's less, less good at than portraits. There's kind of better, no beach, but it's definitely adhering to the original input geometry. Let's see, try a different one. Let's go. Um, or haven't tried this one. Okay, this is a very old project by UN Studio. Let's see, skyscraper, with whiteboard, forests, cherry blossom trees. So there's our canny edges. And like if we were to change our depth, we would just switch this for this here, and we'd need to change this as well to match the right diffusion model. And it's kind of interesting in challenges like this, which would work better, depth or canny. If you were loading both depth and canny in this way, you'd be loading two flux models within the same workflow, which would get kind of heavy. It definitely would be a challenge for the current GPUs of Oxford Brookes. The 5090 would not have an issue with it, but it would definitely make the current one struggle. Oh wow, it just went for like a 3-story building as if these were the balconies, and then just put this mural of trees on the edge. Okay, interesting. And I don't know what these big lights are, but it's like, you know, Cafe Racer, the motorcycles. It's like these massive like Cafe Racer inspired lights. I don't know what's going on here. Okay, but anyway, that's or let's just try one in depth just by comparison. Okay, so let's put that to there, that to there, and change this to depth. So you should have downloaded the depth, Flux1 depth FP8. And then I can just do Control Enter to hit go. So it's loading in a new model now, so it's going to be a little slow. I didn't mess around with these settings, but also it's loading at 512. Oh well. And even though we can't really perceive the difference of, or, you know, it's kind of blurry, that these depth models actually see these edges as quite different if they're even slightly different in their intensity level. I kind of intended this would be like the original image, like a 20-story building, and instead sort of something quite different. And especially at like very quickly expanding prompts, like using the ChatGPT notes that I showed, or even the having LLM Studio open and running the LLM locally is a great way to sort of start with small prompts and have it sort of expanded and then go into this kind of workflow. Also, these two buttons here can sometimes be important to clear, unload all the loaded models and to free model and node cache. And it's kind of a good idea to, I'm kind of just loading everything on top of it and it's kind of replacing it, but it might be a better idea after each workflow to actually clear what the GPU is handling and then press go. After this is done, I'm going to go through some of the other workflows as opposed to building them from scratch and just kind of show you more Flux workflows, and as well as Flux context, which I'll explain when we get there. So now we're comparing depth versus canny. So that was canny, and now here comes depth. I still love those lights. Oh wow. Okay. A lot more illustrative. Yeah, that's kind of fun. Okay, so I'm going to pause this workflow here, and as well, just like I might as well keep it in this video. If I load up the workflow that I'm going to share with you, and I'm going to share all these with you. Would be this one. So the only difference I've done in this one is it's a little bit more savvy, just a few extra nodes. So I have the same set canny and depth, but I put in a switch, and the switch allows input 1 and input 2, and it is controlled with get switch. That's the same get node, set node as we kind of saw before. Also, I did the same with the text, that it's going to control whether this says canny. If we just expand that, has canny as the end or depth at the end. So that just fixes the safe param file. And if we see where these are controlled up the top here, so we can just say the switch to canny for 1, depth for 2. So I just do 2 and depth and then press go, or I do canny and 1 and press go. And that's how you kind of switch. Everything else will switch, because this is controlling the model that's going in here. With get canny depth, that's coming from set canny depth. Yeah. Other than that, exact same workflow. And one thing I have not mentioned is this. Okay, so hopefully this just loads as is. I did this image here for 100 Architects. And I did, okay, axonometric 3D model of cafe building with people, pastel colors, nighttime hipster coffee. Okay. So that's what it's going to work on. And so I've done the image, either depth or canny, whichever one it's set to, into A, and the final image into B. And this is just going to basically have a slider over the top that sort of allows us to just compare the two. And we could put in the original image if we just connected the original image into image A, and the new image into image B, and compare the two. But it's generally just to compare two images. It's a really nice node. You see some people sharing this kind of stuff on Instagram and whatever. So this is our new image, and this is our original image. And if I actually just, I'm not going to like link it, but just put this into this node here, and hopefully it won't regenerate. It will just give me, I know the seed must be on a new seed. Okay. If the seed was fixed, it might have just actually just done this and nothing else, but I just want it to be from the original image to the new image. But even this here is so much better than some image to image workflows that you see on platforms that you put in an image and you get like something that is 10, 15% similar to the image. Like it's not even close. Okay, so there's the original image and the new image. Changing it to a cafe. Text is still not great in this model. I think that's trying to say cafe. But yeah, some of the other models, and even Black Forest Labs, who make Flux, kind of say that like their Pro model does text better, which you have to pay for, or even context does text better. But anyway, that's that workflow. So now I'll just let me just do unload here, and let's just have a open various workflows and have a look at them. So this here is what I would describe as an XXL, because I'm just going to push play while I explain it. So we take in an image, we resize it, we use a depth map. All of that's quite similar. It's saving the original image, it's saving the depth image. This is all quite similar. We're having a dual clip, positive and negative prompt, remotely connected. We're doing a crowded seaside swimming pool on a summer day, people sunbathing and swimming, bright blue sky, ocean view, tropical vibe, photorealistic vivid lighting from this. But here's where we're slightly changing it. It's using depth. Yeah, so it's using depth here and using depth as the diffusion model. So sometimes they call it that yellow, but anyway, that's the model is loading the flux depth model, exactly same as the previous workflow that we just looked at. And it's doing that in this K-sampler, but then it's saving that out as an image, which is this here. And this deliberately is not brought to that many steps. And then that is fed to a different K-sampler to go back to the full flux dev model and asked to continue in the steps to go to the final output. And this does lead to better outcomes, but it does, it's a lot heavier because it's loading two flux models essentially. And if you see here that the total number of steps is 28 and round one steps is 10. So that means this is going to be 10 steps. That's 10 steps, which is not definitely a complete image. And we could, like, if we wanted, extend this up and even further, but the whole point is using the kind of ControlNet-ish workflow for the first 10 steps and then doing the rest of the 18 steps in this one. So it's loading the second model currently. And this is just saving the params. So the big difference here is it's got two K-samplers and it's running 10 steps here and the remaining 18 steps here. And you could vary that with total steps and round one steps here. Okay, this one is on its way. Okay, there we go. So they look like it's the same person repeated over and over again, or just a very homogeneous crowd. But anyway, regardless. Yeah, so that's my XXL Flux Canny depth. Union is a different method, and this is where actually that's the one I was thinking of earlier that oh no, I don't remember that name. Auxiliary preprocessor, and you basically can choose Canny Edge, depth, or any number of other things, and lots of them available. Okay, so this is, we're loading an image, resizing it, using Canny or depth, These are other Kenny and depth. And in this case, we're just loading a model, which you would have had to download separately as well, which is just called Union Pro, or like Flux, and then Union Pro FP8. And this does not need to be changed between Canny and depth. It just is going to figure it out either way. And other than that, that's the same, right? So it's got the benefit. It's really just changing this ControlNet model to Union Pro versus a dedicated fine-tuned flip, Canny or depth model. But it generates slightly different results. When I'm waiting for that to load, here's rather than do empty latent image, here's empty Stable Diffusion 3 image. And what this does is it sort of rounds up, given Flux and Stable Diffusion 3 will only work at sort of multiples of 4 in terms of like, you wouldn't want to do 1023 pixels by 1023 pixels. That would sort of mess it up. So it sort of gets to the nearest suitable image with this empty SD3 latent image as opposed to empty latent image. But there is our Canny from, this is a Morphosis project that's not far from me in Dallas in Texas. This is, or yeah, I think this is that one. It's a museum part of University of Texas, Dallas, or UT Dallas. And for the, I did a photorealistic image of a cat cafe surrounded by thousands of cats. Architecture, modern design, flowing form photography. Okay, we'll see if it actually gets 1,000 cats. But there's these videos on YouTube of like some island in Japan that has like thousands of cats. If you got an image of that, use that as a style image, that would probably help. This part is just waiting for a lot of these models to load. Actually, sorry, this is different. Sorry, this load control net model is going to an apply control net. And then that's still loading. It's, yeah, it's slightly different, but you can sort of just open it and see that's apply control net, load control net model. Loading the regular FP8 Flux model. And this is set at 60%. Okay, so this is almost done. It's like the interior of an 80s hotel. What was my prompt? Oh, this was the cat cafe. Don't know if it really followed this prompt a whole much. But again, it's messing around with these settings. If this generates fast, I'll wait around. Well, actually, are they meant to be cats? I don't know. They're a bit blurry. Well, either way, this is one reason I prefer these previous workflows. But yeah, if you play around with the settings enough, I guess you get different workflows to work well. I'm gonna clear this again, and we go on to the next one. Hopefully, you've got enough now to know like the various nodes to know what's going on in each of them. So Redux is a version of Flux that is quite close to an image prompt adapter. It's loading just the regular deb fp8. Uh-oh. Not sure why this is blank. I'm just going to bypass this. While we're waiting for that to load, that blending images is, there are different ways to do this, and it sort of takes the ideas of two images, like in some, like there was let's say an image of a dog like zoomed in, and then an image of a cat, and then you blended them together and you got a cat zoomed in at the same pose of the dog, depending on the weights. But that's what this blend workflow is about. It's and there's, I did an SDXL one that I didn't go through, and also a Redux one. Okay, so there's a futuristic supermarket, I think it was. But anyway, it sort of doesn't work as well as getting back to these 6 and 7 that I like much better. So I might skip ahead to the final workflow. And I think I'll just go through this one. I think I'll just go through this one, save on time. And here's documentation on the context model. This is sort of to transfer the style from one model to the next. So you can kind of change a building, like keep the same building, but change the material or change the sky. And you kind of prompt in a certain way that follows the guidelines. So it's definitely worth opening these guidelines and seeing how it says to prompt the model. It's going to load the same dual clip, the same load VAE, but the model is itself going to be the context model with the K. I think that's German. And one of the big switches here is we're going to stitch, or actually, let's say on the first option, we'll just do a thing. So I found this image or various ideas from Dominic Wilcox, this guy from the Midlands in England. And he has a book, or kind of a small coffee table book called Variations of Normal. And as a test, I tried to see if past models could take and turn this image into a photorealistic version of the same thing. And because they'd never been trained on this, by the way, is a champagne glass sticking out of a champagne bottle for people that like to drink out of the bottle but look classy while doing it. That's what this is designed to be. And a lot of variations on normal or those kind of things. He has like the is it maracas that you sort of shake and a toothbrush combined in one for people that like to party when they wake up, and just lots of these sketches that are just kind of fun. So my point was that previous models failed to really turn this into photorealistic image, but Flux context uniquely does it actually pretty well. So I think this is, did I push play on this one? I'm not sure what this is actually like loading. A lot of the rest of the workflow, though, is quite similar. We do have the option to have the empty or to bring in the original image and then denoise it. So still loading the model. I have this preview there more for when I connect this one. It moved slightly. Hopefully it keeps going. I think the model's loaded now. So now it's in this section. So once it makes it into that section, we should be able to see it in the terminal. There it goes. So 5 steps out of 20 so far. This is another model that might be quite heavy on the kind of existing or old computers at Brooks, where the new GPUs should do crazy fast. And this is probably the latest sort of thing that people are talking about. You can look up what date it came out. I mean, still like a few months, but it's the newest of all the things I've showed you. There we go. So there we go. We have a champagne bottle with it's actually more of a wine glass for people that like to drink out of the bottle but stay classy. Okay, so that another way that we can use this context, I got this from my friend Mihal, who teaches at EAC as well. And I'm going to connect the second image. So now we're going to stitch with this image stitch component, stitch these two together. And I'm going to change this file to some sort of building. So let's just let's just go with this one here. This in Studio BMW Museum, I think. And I'm going to do change this to a museum building with a red card. Ouch. Hopefully this should be fast since it's already loaded. And what this does is when the image stitch is there and we put this to down, it makes an image that is combine the two images together like this, one on top of the other. And hopefully it should basically suck that image of that car up into this, the bottom of this image. And if we put it to the right, it would sort of bring it into the right. And so the position is kind of important on how we connect that. And then, of course, I do not want the latent image, which is this strange size of 720 by 1456. I want to get back to the 1024 by 1024. So that's what's going to sort of force it back to a 1024 by 1024 image. Not 100% I wrote this prompt right, but definitely the documentation might have more. Okay, it's definitely loading faster this time now that the model is already loaded into memory. And I think it's 19 out of 20. Okay, it gave us a red car outside of a museum, but no. So this is, if we change around the settings, it will sort of be more, kind of has some relationship to the card, but in terms of angle. I might just put a museum building plus. Or maybe just add this red car. With shrimp purpose going. And for those interested, I linked a reference paper for flux context, which could be what I read for those that want to read up on the more computer science side of it. Okay, that's much better. It's kind of like bad Photoshop over here, but it's kind of blended the two images together, and you kind of see that it's sort of trying. This is the part here that I don't particularly like, but it is definitely like deleted the house from that side. Anyway, you can play around with this. If you actually look up the details, like sometimes like it might change some detail about the car. In this case, it looks quite similar. Like sometimes it just randomly changes the license plate, or goes from a BMW to a Mercedes or something. I don't know what car this is. Yeah, I really can't remember. But yeah, so that's Flux Context. You can use it to um, kind of get back a very similar project that what you put in, but just change a detail, like change the sky, change the material, are the two most common things that people have used Flux for. And I've linked the documentation here, so it's sort of worth seeing, like, yellow car to red car, change the background to, I guess, the weather, changing text. So here's like ultra clean, change it to ultra cool. Yeah, okay. So that's all for this sort of set of videos, and hopefully that's enough tools to play around with it, keep you busy. And we're going to do some sort of what Adam called a surgery, which I'll look forward to, where hopefully you guys can make something with these workflows and we can talk about the results. All right, bye.